in less than 2 weeks. The large-scale military operation launched by the Syrian opposition forces led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham has quickly captured cities and territories. On December 8 local time, according to multiple foreign media reports, the Syrian opposition forces announced the capture of the capital Damascus and declared through the national television that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has fallen from power. It has only been 12 days since they launched this round of offensive at the end of last month. The Syrian opposition forces also claim that Bashar has fled the capital in response. The Syrian government has not yet made an official response. However, the Russian Foreign Ministry said on the 8th that after negotiations with some participants in the armed conflict in Syria, Bashar decided to resign as president and leave the country and ordered a peaceful transfer of power. The Russian Foreign Ministry said that Russia was not involved in the relevant negotiations with the rapid development of the Syrian situation. The HTS behind this offensive has attracted more attention. What exactly is the origin of this Syrian opposition armed force, which is called by the British media as one of the most lethal organizations against Bashar? What is the background and what are the goals of Abu Muhammad al-Julani? Who leads this force? The predecessor of HTS was called al-Nusayr Front, which was established when the Syrian civil war broke out in 2011 and was once a branch of the extremist organization al-Qaeda in Syria. Currently, HTS is recognized as a terrorist organization by the governments of Turkey, the United States, Russia and other countries, and the United Nations. The first supreme leader of another extremist organization, Islamic State ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, also participated in the formation of al-Nusayr Front. Since then, the organization has risen rapidly and is famous for insurgent attacks and suicide bombings against the Syrian government forces. In July 2016, in order to get rid of the label of a terrorist organization and avoid strikes by the United States and Russia, the leader of al-Nusayr Front, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, publicly broke with al-Qaeda, dissolved al-Nusayr Front and established a new organization. 1 year later, this organization merged with several other similar Syrian opposition factions and was named Tahrir al-Sham Coalition. That is, HTS. Over the past few years, HTS has been controlling Idlib province, which is bordered by northwestern Syria and southern Turkey. Using Idlib as its base, HTS established the so-called Syrian Salvation Government, providing basic social services such as schools, clinics and courts for about 4 million people in the local area and obtaining a stable source of funds through means such as taxation. HTS is considered to represent a more localized Islamic militant faction and does not seek to launch a broader war like ISIS to establish a so-called caliphate spanning Iraq and Syria. As for its exact nature, some hold the view that it enforces Islamic codes of conduct less strictly than expected and even claims that HTS is a new, pragmatic form of Islamic radicalism. However, other experts believe that the core ideology of HTS still remains loyal to the principles of extreme Islamism. HTS attempts to establish a legitimate local government in Syria, but is accused of many human rights violations. Al-Julani, who led HTS to break away from al-Qaeda, is 42 years old. He was born in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, and grew up in Damascus. His parents are Syrians from the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is located in southwestern Syria. Israel occupied this area during the Third Middle East War in 1967 and has refused to return it, according to al-Julani's own account in an interview with U.S. media. In his early years, it was the Second Intifada that broke out in 2000 that inspired his fighting spirit. After the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, he became a jihadist. Later, his in-depth understanding of Syria attracted the attention of al-Baghdadi, who was trying to expand his influence by taking advantage of the Syrian civil war for a long time. Al-Julani has always been very cautious about keeping his identity secret. CNN said that when he was interviewed on television in the past, he never faced the camera directly and always covered his face when making public appearances. It was only when he announced the break with al-Qaeda in 2016 that al-Julani made his first public appearance in a video. In fact, the name al-Julani, which is well known to the outside world, is also a pseudonym he uses externally. This week, in the statement announcing the capture of Hama, the capital of Hama province in central Syria and the fourth largest city in Syria, HTS publicly revealed his real name for the first time, Ahmed al-Shara. In the years after breaking away from al-Qaeda, al-Julani has appeared more frequently in the media. He not only changed his clothing, taking off the camouflage uniform of a jihadist and putting on a Western-style suit and shirt, but also promoted himself as a viable partner for Western countries to contain Iran's influence in the Middle East. He launched operations against ISIS, including the high-profile announcement of the killing of Abu al-Hussein al-Husseini al-Qurashi, the fourth supreme leader of ISIS in 2023. In 2021, al-Julani told the public broadcasting service PBS that he had no intention of going to war with Western countries. When being interviewed by CNN, he also tried again to show a moderate worldview. In the interview video, he avoided mentioning jihad and repeatedly said that the movement he led was a revolution aimed at liberating Syria. When asked about his transformation, al-Julani said, "I believe that everyone goes through different stages and trials in life. As you grow up, you keep learning until the last day of your life." However, in the view of US media, al-Julani's attempt to whitewash himself seems to have been unsuccessful. Although al-Julani has tried to distance himself from extremist organizations and promote the achievements of the Syrian Salvation Government, the United States still lists HTS as a terrorist organization and cracks down on HTS members who once served al-Qaeda. In addition, human rights organizations and local observers have accused the Syrian Salvation Government of HTS in Idlib of severely cracking down on protests and torturing dissenters. In response to this, al-Julani's explanation to CNN was that the abuse incidents were not carried out under our orders or instructions and that HTS has held the relevant personnel accountable. However, considering the complex web of various forces behind the latest situation in Syria, it remains unclear where the regional situation will be led by this offensive of HTS. In particular, the military support provided by Turkey to HTS may become an important factor affecting the war situation. The Turkish government has unilaterally demarcated a so-called security zone in the area, bordering Syria for many years and has launched cross-border military operations in northwestern Syria several times on the pretext of combating Kurdish armed forces in Syria. Although HTS is on the list of terrorist organizations in Turkey, out of the consideration of seeking its own interests in regional affairs, Turkey allows HTS to fight side by side with the anti-government armed forces it has cultivated, the so-called Syrian National Army SNA. HTS, in turn, acquiesces in the Turkish army's establishment of outposts deep in the hinterland of Idlib province under its control. In fact, the Syrian opposition forces originally planned to launch this round of offensive in October, but it was halted by Turkey. However, after the Bashar government rejected Turkey's conditions for the normalization of relations between Turkey and Syria, Turkey gave the green light for the attack. The Syrian government insists that the withdrawal of Turkish troops is a condition for the normalization of relations. There is also news that HTS has received support from the United States and Ukraine. The Russian Sputnik news agency reported on the 2nd. citing sources from people familiar with the Syrian special forces, that HTS launched the offensive with the support of Ukrainian advisors and American technical support such as satellite navigation and electronic warfare equipment. The Ukrainian KYIV Post reported on the 1st that the HIMIK Special Operations Group of the Ukrainian Defense Ministry's Intelligence Directorate has sent instructors to teach HTS personnel the tactics and combat methods mastered by the Ukrainian side on the battlefield, including the use of drones. In addition, the fact that HTS's current offensive began on the same day as the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon took effect is also quite thought-provoking. Analysts believe that the Syrian opposition believes it needs to seize the opportunity when Bashar's two major allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran, have been seriously weakened by Israel, and another major ally of his, Russia, is also preoccupied with the nearly 3-year-long Russia-Ukraine conflict and has reduced its troops and equipment in Syria in Shahbazov's view. Although Turkey has been strongly criticizing Israel's war in Gaza, HTS's military action serves the common interests of both countries. So it is very likely that Turkey and Israel coordinated their actions against the Syrian government, Iran and the armed forces supported by them in advance. He mentioned that on November 19th, Ronan Bar, the head of Israel's Shin Bet security service, held a secret meeting in Ankara with Ibrahim Kalin, the head of Turkey's National Intelligence Agency. A few weeks later, according to Israeli media reports, on December 1st, after the conflict broke out in Syria, the Israeli Air Force intercepted an Iranian plane suspected of transporting weapons to Hezbollah. In Lebanon, Shahbazov believes that Turkey has two goals. First, it hopes to marginalize the power of Syrian Kurdish organizations. Second, taking advantage of the Trump 2.0 opportunity, it aims to weaken the presence of Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria and fill the void in the Middle East. And the second point coincides with Israel's. He said that Turkey probably anticipates that after U.S. President-elect Trump returns to power, he will continue his previous Middle East policy and withdraw about 900 U.S. troops from Syria and 1,500 U.S. troops from Iraq, which will leave a power and security vacuum.